but that's fine. Trevor, and I appreciate you're under pressure to get back to the Shannon with speaking commitment, so thank you for your continued patience. I'll let you in there.
Yeah, good evening, agus Kate Falterov, and I'm deputising for Jonathan O'Brien, who's our spokesperson on education. It's fascinating, and I think it's a service way back when I was in UCG, when I was trying to navigate through economics, statistics and maths, and would have definitely been banging your door down. A couple of things you mentioned there, which I find very interesting. You were saying that the ICT-enabled supports weren't very much used, and I'm surprised that when we're becoming so much more computer literate and people are doing things in their own speed at their own time, what are the barriers you see to people using those resources? If I just give you a couple of quick questions, yeah. The other thing as well is I'm not sure if you feel it's within your competency to mention Project Maths. We've heard a lot of talk about Project Maths, about improving the mathematical skills of second level going into third level. Have you seen anything within that? Is it a step forward or a step backwards, or do we need to rethink that type of methodology? And what would your ask be? I mean, at the moment, how many tutors do we have across the third level colleges? And if you had the checkbook in the morning, how many more tutors would you look for, or what other resources would you actually be asking for in a reasonable manner that could be something that would be put to a Minister for Education in a practical sense? You're great people for quantifying things, so I'd imagine you'd be able to put a figure on it.
Very good. And as Trevor is under pressure, I was going to group all the questions together, but I know you're under pressure to go, so if you don't mind, Kieran, I'll ask you to answer Trevor's and then I'll get to groups.
I might take the first one on the ICT. I know that what we've seen is that students, when they're nervous about maths, they really want to talk to a person. And we've found that no matter what kind of ICT resources we put in, part-time students engage a lot with ICT resources, and that's because they're usually trying to hold down a job, study in the evening, and they don't have time to come into the university apart from that. So they do use ICT resources, and the universities or IOTs that have more part-time evening courses will definitely see more ICT usage. But what we found apart from that is that students by and large want to come in and sit down with a person.
Okay.
In terms of the Project Maths one, the Project Maths, really the first cohort of students who will have completed Project Maths from all the way through second level will not be there. Some of the pilot schools might be there 2017, but it'll be 2018 before the first cohort of students. So it's way too early to make any kind of comments on that and what impact it's had or whatever.
I can just add one little thing to that. The only impact we can say, just speaking from Maynooth University, we have had to change some of the modules that we're teaching first years in statistics because we've had to actually up the level. So now we're putting elements of second year courses into the first year courses because we found the stuff we were teaching in first year, the students now know it. But that's just one small, that's statistics, which is approximately 1/3, 1/4 of their maths to do in first year. But that's only a small snapshot, and as Kieran said, I'd agree, we have to wait. How many tutors, and you're going to give someone from Monaghan a check, okay. It's very, very hard to give a definitive answer because the needs in each of the institutions are different. I know at the moment in Maynooth, I have 22 tutors working in the Maths Support Centre, but that ranges from some people have 1 hour, 2 hours, yeah. But that's people 1 hour, 2 hour. Some are postgrads, some are because we have an issue with sourcing good tutors, some are undergraduates, so you have to spread it out. It's a difficult one to answer, but we provide at the moment something like 127 hours or tutor hours per week. But it's different in the different institutions. So I can certainly do a survey, another one. I can certainly ask around in North and South, and we can get people to come back and say what a definite figure would be, but I couldn't give you...
I think probably multi-annual funding is the main thing, because once we actually have something in place, once you know you have something in place for 3 years or 5 years and you can bring in this kind of thing, a lot of places would actually extend what they're doing right now. This is what we're seeing, is that students are saying you're not open enough hours, there's not enough tutors when you're there. So if you had more money, you would open longer, more students would come.
Sorry, just in terms of that, that's one of the reasons we're undertaking that audit of maths learning support across the island, because we want the last audit that we conducted was 2007 or 8, I think, 8, yeah. So we want an up-to-date audit of exactly what's happening. So hopefully we can answer that before Christmas.
Yeah, sorry, just one point to that thing. The thing is that what's a difficult argument for us to make. This is not a cost. Like there is a price. Each institution would have an amount of money that they're losing per student who drops out, and that's for each year of their degree. So if you save, and again, we can't say that we're the reason, but evidence points that quite often you make a difference. You save one student, that's a certain amount for that year, multiply that by 3, 4 or 5 for the 5 years. It more than pays for itself, actually. It's just that you see money going out, but actually what you're doing is you're not losing as much money as you would have been doing. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Trevor. I'll take Kieran wants to come in, and Mary Louise. So Kieran, yeah.
Morgan, and welcome to you all. Just to clarify, Kieran, you said that there are 22 tutors working in Maynooth.
In my support centre at the moment, correct? Yes,
okay.
correct.
And are they doing this on a part-time basis? Or?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's different, it depends on maybe what they're doing. So some of them are postgraduates, and there will be stipulations that they can only do, if they have funding, they might be only allowed to do 1 or 2 hours of, so either they might do an hour for me, or they might be giving a tutorial in the department. It varies. It's not 22 every year.
Okay.
I try and...
It fluctuates.
Yes, exactly, yes.
Just one observation that occurs to me in listening to your presentation, and thank you for the presentation, and something I don't get, and Trevor mentioned it earlier on. On the one hand, they're saying that the ICT in enhanced supports that are there are not effective further. They're essentially saying that's not working for me as an individual. On the other hand, they're saying the issue of access times, and that they're somehow not appropriate to their lives in terms of the being able to access the supports when they want them. They seem to be two issues that could actually support one another in addressing a challenge. If you were to have some sort of ICT support structure that was to their satisfying their needs, and we could talk about what that might be, well, then you would more than likely, hopefully, solve the issue of them not being able to access the support structure at a time that's convenient to them. Because the vast majority of them are carrying one of these now, and I just find that in 2015, for young people, probably aged in the region of 20 to 35, roughly, are somehow saying that maths tuition or maths support structure delivered on an ICT platform isn't working for them. And I look at, for example, on Cusson out in Jobestown, what they're doing with their online community college, where they are teaching students all over the country from a centre predominantly based in Tala. And it's live on the basis that there's a live interaction ongoing between the students and the tutor, and then it's all recorded so that the student can go back the next night and go through the whole class again at their own convenience. If you look at what Alison is doing in Galway, Alison is now the largest online global educator in the continent of Africa. 30 people in Galway teaching a whole continent online, predominantly again on a part-time basis. You look at what the Khan Academy is doing. 2 years ago there were 4,000 students at the Khan Academy using the platform in Ireland. There are now 93,000. So is there a challenge that you face in terms of being able to reach out to students and a solution that's there alongside, and we somehow haven't managed to bring the two together? Or is that something you're working towards? Or is that do you see that being a major tool available to you in addressing the challenge of maths proficiency in third level in the future? Because it seems to me there's a solution and a problem kind of waiting to dovetail into one another, and I'd just be interested to know your views on that. So.
Okay, thanks, Kieran. Senator.
Oh, thank you. I think this is wonderful, and anything that helps the situation that we're in, leaving certificate into third level, has to be welcomed. I just want to go offside a bit. Nowhere in your recommendations or in your executive summary, and it wasn't your remit, but I'd be interested in your opinions from your knowledge as to how have we got to this stage of the problem? For the need for you. What has happened? What is the reasons that we're at this stage, besides the obvious ones? What is your opinion about that? Why we have got so badly, so quickly, so far in relation to mathematics? Do you understand what I mean by that? What would be your opinion, considering that you now have kind of a school of mathematics, you see, here, in a way that you are meeting it out across a huge myriad of areas? Could you just give me what you think about that? What you think we've got here so badly, so quickly, and so far in relation to the problem that has warranted your existence, and rightly so. What is your opinion also, since you are what I would call a school of mathematics, a travelling school of mathematics across the country, what is your opinion on giving points for failure? Which is what we're doing in the Leaving Certificate now. If you fail honours maths, or you get between 30 and 39%, you can pick up between 52 and 56%. And maybe I'm not right on that. I see you're, Kieran, nodding your head there, but you may correct me on that if I'm incorrect. But I know there are what I would call, I can call it what you like. I know it's an arbitrary figure, but there's something wrong with saying that if you get between 30-something and 39, you can pick up between 50 and 58 on the past paper. There's something radically wrong with that. And is what you're doing at the right level, or would you like to see yourself disperse into first level? You know what I would call primary, I think Trevor mentioned this, into primary education as well.
Senator Darcy.
Well, my question is, part of it is related. What are the competencies that the average person seeking help lacks? Is it conceptual or numerical, or I suppose part of the reason is because of the increased emphasis on STEM. I realize that the science and technology sector. Are the students not prepared for this learning, or is it because they are not capable of it and that they need all this help just to bring them up to a certain level? And what type of funding are we looking at needing for the continuation and the development of maths learning support? And as the aim of all teachers, good teachers, is to make themselves redundant, and that our students will disgrace them with their knowledge. Is there an end? Do you see this as being ongoing for years and years and years now, or can you see a levelling off or a plateau, or how can the primary school system help it as well? In other words, I have this idea that the end of the primary school curriculum has been dumbed down, and you used to teach long division in 4th class, and now it's taught in 5th, and you don't deal in compound fractions because you're told so, and you don't deal in complex fractions like 4/11ths or 5/17ths. They wouldn't begin to be able to add or subtract or multiply or divide any of those fractions now. And I'm wondering what are the core reasons.
Just from my own part as well, I'd just like to ask the witnesses here today, taking up from the point that Senator O'Donnell referred again about the primary school, and indeed the previous speaker was talking about that as well. I must say I kind of find it unusual that you have absolutely no, I suppose, interaction with the primary school. I would have thought that you would have so much valuable knowledge gained on the whole teaching and learning of maths, and that I thought if it wasn't joined up through all 3 levels, that we'd be in an unusual position to be in. And I'd be just interested to know if you have any plans to share your information on the teaching learning of maths that you've discovered with the primary sector, because I do think that would feed back up to you at a level that would be well worthwhile if that could be more joined up. I remember from my own days teaching, I still often refer to this, that the practicality of the teaching of maths and learning of maths, that even if you had very weak students, I found, I'm going back nearly 20 years ago now, when I used to print out the shares from the day's newspaper and give each of the students £100 back then, as in fictitiously, and let them buy shares for the day. and every week we valued our shares, and they found that fascinating. Some were making money and losing money. I'm sure there was a couple of gamblers maybe resulted afterwards from that teaching. But you know, that kind of teaching, that's what I'm talking about, those type of strategies that could be shared across the sector. So you might answer that. I know you're late, Senator, there. Do you want to ask a question? You might have been tuned in.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming in. I know it was on my invitation, and I apologise profusely. I had, this is Positive Mental Health Week, and it's just physically impossible to be in two different places. I was actually launching, with the Minister down to launch an art exhibition in Dundalk this morning, so I said I got back as quickly as I could. But I'm very well familiar, I just made a few observations, that I'm very well familiar with your work. I don't think that's me, my phone is off. Oh, didn't hear I've said. No, it's not me. But, no, I'm very familiar with it, and I've been out, and I think, you know, very well, I've kind of advocated for this. I think it's fabulous to have it. Speaking as a mother of two of my children, one who availed of maths support in Maynooth and one in NUIG, I know that they were absolutely two products where they've kind of said, and I know from the statistics that came back from the report of people who found it beneficial, and indeed many people that I spoke to, even, you know, going out, who have availed of maths support, have often said, you know, that it was their reason for continuing on in the course that they are. When you look at the statistics and you see that our level of maths, I think that is worrying, and I'm sure that you've covered that already, about the level of maths going into third level education. I think it's fantastic that, you know, that's what's keeping those courses, a lot of the courses going, and we need to, and we know that there's a big push on pushing the STEM subjects. So, I mean, again, thank you very much, and I'm sure the question has been asked, that what I would like to know and what I would say is how can we help? What can we do as a committee to help you progress your work?
Okay, thank you, Senator, and I'm sure you'll be able to review the transcript as well with interest post this meeting. Okay, I might ask you to briefly respond to any of the issues that were raised and questions raised.
I might start with your question, Kieran, about the ICT. One of the things we've seen and what we strive to do with maths support is to help students become independent learners, and that's a major struggle when they come to third level. They're not used to that kind of approach. And one of the problems with maths in particular is that students often don't know the terminology for what they can't do. So for them to independently use ICT is incredibly difficult. They can follow a program, they can follow a module or a course where everything has been laid out, and they must do tutorial 1 and tutorial 2, and there are ICT resources for that particular program. If they struggle to get the correct answer, they don't know what part of the answer that they've come up with is incorrect, and therefore they don't know the resource to look up to help them. And that's what we find is the major problem for students who are really struggling. They don't know the terminology, and they will often look up the wrong thing, and then they'll say, oh, that was useless, it didn't help me with the right thing. The resource was useless. But in actual fact, they were looking at the wrong one. So what we find is that a lot of the time what we're encouraging them to do is try to identify, to pin down exactly what point their understanding breaks down, to come in to us and find out what terminology we would use for that, and then that enables them to use the ICT resources that would relate to that, but it still needs the person-to-person contact. And I think the problem and why that happens so much in maths is that so much of it is building blocks, and if you miss one of those, you miss everything after that. And that means that, and it kind of addresses a little bit actually of what Jim was asking about the end in sight for maths learning support. The problem is there will always be people who were sick for a little while before, or came through a different kind of education system, or have dyslexia, or have various different challenges themselves, and have missed something crucial at some point, sometimes in primary school, sometimes in second level. Sometimes it's just been a while and they can't remember certain things. But because you can be missing one or two of those crucial building blocks, it affects everything you're doing afterwards. And I don't think we're ever going to see a situation where everybody's grasped enough that they're doing just fine without this extra help. And sometimes we'll see students who are really, really struggling in their course, and within a half an hour or an hour spending some time with us and solving a few basic problems for them, they suddenly find they're able to do the ones that look more complex, but they just can't get to that stage without that. So I think that's a major problem we're seeing. ICT resources would be great. The more we can use them, the better. And what we're trying to do is tailor things as much as possible to the needs that we see coming in with the students, but we still feel that we need to be the middleman, if you like, in between the student and the ICT resources.
Are there any other questions you want to respond to, and that you're okay on that? Yeah. That's fine, yeah, just that if we can
Yeah.
condense it to one contribution from your
Yeah, just in terms of the ICT, again, this survey, it's from the data was gathered a few years ago, so things have moved on, and we've certainly moved on in terms of how ICT-enabled supports are used for maths learning support. So last year we were trying to prototype a maths learning support where a student could, at a distance, access human support. So we're conscious of trying to move that along, but it's an evolving thing. And we would see maths learning support as a resource very much like the library. And if it's a key intervention, it's a targeted intervention, and can make a huge difference in terms of development of confidence. In terms of working our way back to reasons from before, and primary and secondary and so on, our expertise is in helping third level students at that key point at the moment. Now, we do endeavour to inform further back in terms of what we've learned, and Kieran will respond a bit more to that. And I'm involved in several projects that are involved, Maths Eyes and Green Maths and so on, that are very much trying to build students' confidence back in primary level and so on. So we're aware of that, but our mission, our focus is on that transition from second level or from adult working back into college. Those two key transitions, and that's where we're busy in terms of focusing on that. But we are aware of the other issues and so on. Just in terms of in terms of the point about points for failure and so on. Again, I think that's beyond our expertise to talk about today, to be honest. Yeah.
Thank you, Kieran.
Okay, which one do I pick? All of them. I think you asked about the cause of the maths problem. I mean, when we say the mathematics problem, it's kind of loosely described as students coming into third level without the basic skills they need to cope. But this is not unique to Ireland at all. Maths support, the pioneers originally were principally in the UK. The vast majority of, well, they don't call them third level there, but let's say higher education institutions in the UK have some math support there. And it's worldwide. Now, if you look up the documentation, I mean, this is a problem everywhere. There's math support in Australia, Canada, the US, to name but a few. There's lots of reasons for that. I don't know that I could say what they are. There are a lot more students completing second level. That's one issue, that you've such a high number of students who are going from second level to third level. If you go back whatever length of time at all, we have people not completing second level, and if they were not going.
What does that mean?
Will you just let him finish his contribution, and if you want to come back after.
No, what I'm just saying is that there are now more students at third level, students that possibly wouldn't have been going in the past. So now they're going into courses maybe without the skills that they need. That's one possible. That's one. Yeah.
Through the chair.
Sorry. Can you just continue with your contribution? Now, of the difference to us all that are here for a longer time now, can we just get to the end of the contribution, please?
Okay.
Kieran,
So that's my opinion on the maths problem. In terms of the interaction with other levels, one thing that we have done. We haven't done it with primary school, maybe on local areas we have, but at secondary school, Bill Lynch from Project Maths last year asked us to give the team a list of the most common problems that we were encountering with students in first year. So we did a quick survey of our colleagues across the country, build up the kind of topics that were having issues, and then there was a training session in Drumcondra where the people who were going out to do the training sessions for Project Maths with the teachers, so myself and another colleague from Letterkenny, we went through the common issues that we have, and then through that they were going out to the schools and telling so that's one small part. Many of us also provide this kind of math support model for secondary schools as well. They're only on a small basis, but we do that, we do some support. And that kind of ties in with the question that Senator Darcy had is, are these students kind of not capable of it, and do they need the support to get through? Personally, what I find is that it's a confidence issue. I can pick one student who came in and she repeated this. She's now finished her degree. She repeated her Leaving Cert to get an ordinary level D3 in pass. and she did a degree in maths and got a 2-1. The first year was, I guess the word is probably torture for me, because she didn't believe. She thought that this was her level. She didn't believe. She just wasn't approaching it in the right way. And a big issue that we realise is students that struggle with maths. It's something that's out there in the media that maths is hard. It's always out there. As soon as there's bad news about maths, it's publicised, and the good news is never publicised. But as soon as the student realised that getting things wrong in maths is key, that you think that if you're good at maths, it's because you're smart. And of course, I'm going to agree with that completely. But the point is that students who struggle with mathematics would not see that people who are so-called good at it get it wrong all the time. It's how they react to getting it wrong. It's like how we learn anything in life. We try it, we fail better. And that's the idea in maths support, that we're there to a point to try and get the students to this point where they realise the process. And I know in my experience, and it's the same with my colleagues, I'm sure, once you get them to this point, they begin to become, the more motivated ones begin to become more independent, and they're actually coming in and showing you all their work that they've got wrong, and they're discussing it. And that's really the key from that point of view. Is there an end in sight? I think that's already been addressed. The main competencies, the main issues that are lacking, it's just the key skills. I take your point on board completely with fractions. I understand that completely. My personal opinion is I would ban calculators. That's my opinion, but I know my colleagues would do it. But that's my own opinion on it. But anyway, that's the idea, and Kieran doesn't agree. I think the one other thing I wanted to say was just in terms of, as Senator Moran said, what can you guys do? It's very hard to say. I know this was come up before, but what level of funding would we require? I guess the main issue that we come across from our own point of view is that third level institutions in Ireland are severely underfunded. So when we go to our own institution and say we need another tutor, we need an extra hour a week, this is the kind of ongoing issue we always have, that we've got very short-term funding. They tell us that they can't because they have their fixed budget and they have to, share it out in a certain way. So if there was increased funding for that, I would hope up to the individual institutions, then that would spread on into maths support. It's up to kind of us on an individual basis and along with the network to argue our cases. And then there's also the issue with the kind of the head count, the number of people that can be employed, and the constant watch on that. So how is that solved? I don't know, but those are the kind of issues that we hear back from our bosses.
Okay. Thank you very much for your presentations here today to the Mathematic Learning Support Network, and thanks to the members for their engagement, and we'll wish you well in the future with your valuable work. Okay, thank you very much.